Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching CNN News 18. This is Nation at 5 with me, Poonam Burde. India just concluded a successful G20 presidency. The world is hailing the outcome. There are some significant ones that have come to the fore over the last weekend. We've seen the kind of decisions that have been taken, the kind of economic corridor pact that has been signed, a direct counter to China. All of that has been covered in a span of just 2 days over the weekend. World has come together as far as consensus on Ukraine is concerned. There is a lot that the world is talking about as far as India's G20 presidency is concerned. A successful one at that. The politics continues here in India. But let's first take a look at what exactly is achieved through this weekend as far as the G20 summit went. Let's take a look at how exactly India managed to get every single person, every single country on board as far as the joint declaration goes. Let's take a look at how exactly it went as far as what transpired in Bali last year when Indonesia was the chair and how that declaration fell through, and there was only a chair summary. But this time around, we did get a Delhi declaration. The consensus was built. What happened last time around? This is the kind of statement that came to the fore last time around, last year in December, in fact, where in the Bali declaration, they said that the aggression against Ukraine was by Russia. The words were changed as far as Delhi declaration went this year around. It spoke of on Ukrainian crisis, how there were different views and assessments. Now, many say that the language has been toned down, but this really is the fine balancing act that India managed to do to ensure that everyone was on board. There are several such instances that come to the fore as far as the two declarations go. During the Bali declaration, it said that they demand Russia's complete withdrawal from Ukraine. This was the time when the West was putting pressure on Putin to withdraw from Ukraine, but that really wasn't happening, which is one of the reasons why that outcome actually didn't succeed as much as they thought they would. There was only a chair summary, no joint communique that came to the end after the Bali summit. This time around in Delhi, in the Delhi declaration, which has 100% consensus, the language was this. The declaration read that we want a just and durable peace in Ukraine. That is what we want, was what the declaration this time around read, which is why every single country signed on the dotted line. In Bali, they said that they deplore the aggression in the strongest of terms. This time around, the declaration read that all states must refrain from the use of force. That is something that was given importance to. That is something that needs to be looked into. This was the language of the communique that we saw. Out of the 8 paragraphs, 7 of them were dedicated to Ukraine, and yet we had every single G20 member sign on the dotted line, give its consent to this particular declaration, and that really is one of the big achievements that came to the fore from this G20 summit. Listen in to some of those reactions that poured in.
At the G20, we made progress on issues like multilateral development bank reform to get to those nations that are neither poor nor wealthy but we couldn't qualify before, debt relief, and increased infrastructure needs, not only in the global south but other parts of the world as well. We forged a groundbreaking new partnership that will connect India to Europe with the Middle East and Israel, with transportation by rail and by shipment through and energy supplies and digital connections that are going to open up untold opportunities for transformative economic investment through on that entire corridor. We've also discussed Russia's brutal and illegal war in Ukraine. There was sufficient agreement in the room on the need for a just and lasting peace that upholds the principles of the UN Charter and respects sovereignty and territorial integrity. I want to once again thank Prime Minister Modi for his leadership and his hospitality in hosting the G20.
Months of hard work, negotiation, and an entire team working tirelessly to ensure that this Delhi declaration was signed upon. There was consensus. And the man that was leading all of this was, of course, the Sherpa for G20 for the Prime Minister, Amitabh Kant. CNN News 18 spoke with him on how exactly it was one night before the summit began to bringing into consensus in an unusual way, even announcing it before the end of the third session. Listen in to what Amitabh Kant told us.
Amitabh Kant ji, namaste, dhanyavad and congratulations. Is it now sinking in that you've achieved what was seemingly looking like impossible even on the night before the day of the summit?
Well, it was difficult. It was very, very tricky. But I think as a team, we've managed it, and it's been largely possible because of India's great stature today, and because of the Prime Minister's own, his credibility in a democracy being very high. And I think I work as the Sherpa to the Prime Minister. So because his stature was high, I could take many risks. I could bulldoze a little bit, and I could get everybody together. The emerging markets got together, and we had good negotiators. And I think we really pushed hard because Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa, and India, all of us, when we get together, we bring a lot of power. And then I realized that as we went along, Saudi, Turkey, Argentina, Mexico all joined us to say that we will not allow G20 to be wrecked. It will not be a divided house. It will be a voice of consensus. And that brought everybody together. We had many challenges while we were negotiating. And in the final stages, I think it went up about minimum 15 times, up and down, up and down, up and down. But I think we were just fortunate to have clinched it. So I think it was, to my mind, I give a lot of credit to this because of the elevated stature of India, and also because I was working as really the Sherpa of the Prime Minister. His personal credibility was very high, and I could pull it off. True. Actually, we got into the final round of negotiation at about 11:30. Next day morning was the leaders' conference, and there was just no time, but we took it to brinkmanship. But important thing is that it's not about IAS or foreign service. We are all working for the country, and we are all working essentially to ensure that India wins. And I had a team of very good officers. I had sitting right and left to me the Brazilian Sherpa, who's a renowned diplomat, and I had Zain, who's a South African Sherpa.
There seems to be significant progress compared to Bali, Amitabhji. And in one interesting part is the economic corridor. Italy now has hinted to China that they're trying to pull out of Belt and Road, and because they're part of this economic corridor. That's a big strategic win, sir.
Yeah. So, Anand, what India has done is a win for multilateralism. It's a win for developing countries. It's a win for emerging markets. It's a win for the global South. And it's a win for consensus politics. And it's a win for peace. It's a clarion call for peace in the world today. And what the document really states very clearly is that growth and development have to be paramount for emerging markets. And this is really the key to this document.
We have to move forward from a GDP-centric progress, GDP-centric world to a human-centric approach. Those were the words the Prime Minister used, and that echoed across the G20 summit. That is something that all partners, all alliance members of the G20 nations agreed to work upon. That really was the underlying sentiment, and India was leading the agenda over the last weekend. This is something that was in the vision of the Prime Minister. He has promised it, he has delivered it. That's really the message that is coming in from close quarters within his cabinet. Listening to what Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri had to tell us.
Let me start off by asking you, you've been part of numerous summits in the past. How would you decode, how would you assess what the Delhi G20 summit has achieved? What is the biggest takeaway as far as you're concerned?
Well, first of all, I have no hesitation in admitting to my age and experience. I've been around for more than 50 years as a Foreign Service officer for 39, in the international think tank UN circuit for another 6. That's 45, another 6 years as a minister. I've attended many summit level meetings. I've attended many G20 events in different capacities. And I can tell you, this one was sui generis, one of a kind, not only in terms of the preparations that went into it, the cultural extravaganza, the fact that you had over 200 meetings in 60 different cities, but most of all, in a very divided world, extremely divided, India was able to play the role of a unifier, and that shows in the successful adoption, unanimous adoption of the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration, and that has set a template and will continue to be regarded as a template, as a reference point for international relations by not only students of international relations, by the different advocacy groups, whether they're dealing with gender issues, climate finance, multilateral development banks, urban resilience, the works. I mean, this is a document without any footnotes, without any interpretative notes being placed by people, without any parentheses. Whenever you're negotiating an international document, I have a problem with this, you have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think the fact is, given goodwill and political maturity, if you want to play the role of a unifier, India has demonstrated that with hands-on, dedicated commitment, right from the Honorable Prime Minister down to our diplomatic team, Amitabh, the young diplomats, etc., it is doable and it's been done. And I think it is a matter of great satisfaction. It should be for all those who were involved and for the rest of us who rejoice in its successful outcome.
Now, like I said, you've been part of numerous such summits and, part of the negotiating teams to try and find this joint communique. And as you said, in such a divided time that we live in, to find such a consensus document which had 83 paragraphs, all of it by consensus and adopted in unison is a huge task in itself. In fact, for journalists who are covering the summit, like myself, on Friday evening, when Amitabh Kant and his team addressed the press, they were not sure whether they will get a joint statement. Even on Saturday morning, they were not sure. When the summit began, they were not sure that they would get a joint statement. But by Saturday afternoon, it was done and dusted. I want to ask you, though, there is some criticism. I think Ukraine has said this because that was the most contentious issue, the Russia-Ukraine war. There is some criticism that the language on the Russia-Ukraine war has been diluted somewhat. There's no direct reference to Russia. How would you respond to that?
I mean, I don't know who is wanting to criticize what. Let's be very clear. If you have language against the use of force and unilateral action, then I'm afraid the language is there. And let me put it this way, whose approval are you seeking? First of all, I think all the countries involved, and I say this without any doubt,
We've concluded the G20 on a high note and the world is still lauding the kind of effort that has put in. UAE is the latest one to come out and react to what a success the last 2 days have been and how this not only impacts India but across the globe as well. In fact, UAE's ambassador to India has now come out and lauded the kind of efforts that were made over the last 2 days and by India as the chair over the last 1 year. Listen in.
Very well done to the India G20 team and to the Indian government on a very well organized, not only G20 summit, but the entire process with all of its high-level meetings, senior officials meetings and so on. We are very proud to be part of this process. We are very proud to be a strategic partner and friend of India.
Abhishek, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more perspective. Now, some of the key things that came out of this summit, one, of course, the biggest one is the economic corridor, which is going to pass through the Middle East as well. Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince was here in India. We had bilateral meetings over it. UAE is someone who also could be benefiting from that particular corridor, isn't it?
Of course, and we have seen India as an emerging economy. India as a provider of a lot of new and emerging technologies is being sought after around the world as a partner, as a strategic ally. And in that context, we should always see such a future-centric project that would connect India to Europe via Gulf and several countries. And, during the development of this route, there will be a lot of infrastructural work that will be needed, including sea route development and railway road linkages. Also, the overall green energy corridor, that is also one of the focus of the latest project, is also going to be part of this, where India has been giving a push to development of green hydrogen and also its usage in most of the energy, usage of our everyday, like from travel to rail to other sources, other avenues where energy is needed. So in that context, we should see the latest infrastructure projects that were announced in the presence of UAE princes. Also, when Prime Minister Modi was also there, that the connectivity project that will connect India to Europe via Middle East. And also there has been other several projects which clearly defines India's emergence on the global stage not only as the economic power, but as a trusted ally also who can be a partner to the common good and the developmental journey of other countries.
Right, one by one, we have these kind of reactions that are pouring in from across the world. UAE is, of course, the latest one. Abhishek, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. Now, the G20 summit was held at the Bharat Mandapam here in the national capital for the last 2 days. There was hectic activity happening there. It was hosting world leaders, their spouses as well. So what exactly does the Bharat Mandapam look like and what remains of it now that we have concluded the G20 summit successfully? My colleague Sharon gets us a look.
We are right now at the main venue of Bharat Mandapam, where all the meetings in fact took place over here. I want to in fact start from here by showing you Bharat. This is where the Prime Minister was sitting, hosting the G20 ministers, the world leaders who in fact come here in large numbers. This is the place where all the meeting in fact took place. In fact, giving once again, I just want to show you, if I ask my camera person to show you, this is the sitting arrangement that was done over here. Next to Bharat is Indonesia, and next to Indonesia is United Kingdom, and there you go. So it's like a round table meeting that took place for 9th and 10th of September, and a successful one. And like the Special Secretary was just mentioning, this is the very place where the declaration, New Delhi Declaration, was also in fact signed.
Now, it wasn't just the G20 summit, but over the last 3 to 4 days, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held several bilaterals, 15 to be precise. One of them was held with his counterpart from Canada, Justin Trudeau. That happened yesterday, and the key issue that was discussed when Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau were at the talks table was that of the increasing incidence of pro-Khalistani sympathizers running riot in different parts of Canada. The community is being threatened, the community is scared, even our diplomats are threatened, is something that the Prime Minister vocally spoke about, and this is not going to be tolerated, was the clear message from India to Canada, even though Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, tried to rake up issues like interference or meddling. He went on to then say that they believe in free speech. This is not free speech, this is violence and hatred, was the clear message that came to the fore from the Indian side. But listen in to what the Canadian Prime Minister had to say first.
They both came up over the years with Prime Minister Modi. We've had many conversations on both of those issues. Obviously, Canada will always defend freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of peaceful protest. That's something that's extremely important to us. At the same time as we're always there to prevent violence, to push back against hatred. I think on the issue of the community, it's important to remember that the actions of the few do not represent the entire community or Canada. The flip side of it, we also highlighted the importance of respecting the rule of law, and we did talk about foreign interference.
We did talk about foreign interference, is what the Canadian Prime Minister said, not exactly alluding to what the context was, but in the past, the Canadian administration has spoken of foreign interference as far as what was happening there. There is no interference. This kind of violence is not going to be tolerated, was the clear message that the Prime Minister sent during that bilateral meeting. So let's take a look at what exactly happened between the two leaders when they were at the negotiating table. Of course, there was a lot of business to be discussed, but this issue was also of importance. Trudeau's statement, like you just heard, he said that we believe in freedom of speech, we believe in free expression, to which India made it very, very clear that there are forces that are promoting secessionism in Canada, and that is something that is not acceptable to India or to New Delhi. Trudeau then went on to say that we will keep pushing back against hatred and violence. But contrary to what he says, we've seen the kind of violent incidences that have come to the fore, the vandalism, the graffiti that we've seen on walls across Canada as far as Hindu temples are concerned. All of that is out there to see, which is why India made it clear that the Indian community is threatened there. That is something that should be taken seriously, even though Justin Trudeau went on to say that the actions of few do not represent the entire country, but yet they somehow fail to act against those actions of a few. Justin Trudeau then went on to say that we believe in the rule of law and action will be taken, to which India made it clear that it is our bilateral ties that are at stake, those ties that are anchored in the fact that there is mutual respect for each other and that both countries believe that it is the rule of law that takes precedence over everything else. That was the kind of commentary that came to the fore from the Indian Prime Minister. Extremely important discussions that took place between the two. Addressing down, if you will, was given to the Canadian Prime Minister as far as the Khalistani issue went. It is of political nature for Justin Trudeau to not act against some of these elements that's believed in some quarters. Is that why he's going soft on the kind of pro-Khalistani sentiment that we've seen across Canada? Whatever it is, India is not going to take this lying down, and that really was the clear message as far as the talks between the two prime ministers were concerned. Anand, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more perspective in this. Anand, this is something on expected lines. Prime Minister Modi has done this with his Australian counterpart in the past as well. And this message had to be sent because irrespective of what Canada says, their words and their actions don't really match.
Well, ahead of the Prime Minister's visit, that is for the G20, Justin Trudeau's visit, last month you had the Canadian NSA who had come and there was an interaction with the NSA Ajit Doval. And there again it was very clearly emphasized to Canada that this will not be tolerated and this is not acceptable. You must crack down. And it was quite a dressing down we are given to understand that was given. And clearly this time around Justin Trudeau finds himself cornered. Blame it on his own ministry, foreign ministry or wherever, because where is he in the pictures? Where is he on the multilateral forum? All other nations were together, but Trudeau was isolated. The other aspect, we must not forget that this entire referendum effort which has happened in Surrey was actually planned or timed for Trudeau to take off from Delhi and for this to happen. Because it all happened hours after the G20 meeting was over. But Trudeau's plane got a technical snag and the Canadian Prime Minister is still in Delhi when this entire effort has happened in Surrey. Even in here, there was an objection raised because Trudeau had said that this is a school. One of the schools had given their own premises for a referendum action to go on there, a secessionist call to be made, and there was huge furor because Trudeau had said we are dedicating or giving extra funds, allocating extra funds for extracurricular activities, and question was asked that is this the extracurricular activity you want to promote? So clearly it is embarrassing for Trudeau that he is still in India. And this has happened a secessionist activity. He tried to show, brazen through it, turning around and trying to even go to say that it is Indian interference. We don't know if that's going to be his pole plank when he seeks another term. Will it work like the China interference? The last time that was the narrative. Will that work? But clearly, equations are frosty, and he is going to isolate himself, given the fact. The proximity that we've seen with America, proximity we've seen with the other nations, and Trudeau finds himself quite a pariah right now. Now, unless he acts on this, like Foreign Minister Jaishankar and you were also mentioning, this is political compulsions, but what sort of political compulsions? Only twice in the lifespan of Canada as a democracy has emergency been established. Once was under Justin Trudeau, the other one was under his father, and that was when the Quebec secessionism was going on. So he should know with his own family background that secession anywhere should not be tolerated and it impinges on the sovereignty of a nation. So why should he encourage it?
And political compulsions on one side and compulsions with bilateral ties as far as India is concerned, that's also on the other side. So a really tough spot for Justin Trudeau to be in. But Anand, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that and that perspective. Those are some of the things that were discussed over the course of the last 3 days. It wasn't just the G20 summit. A lot came out on the sidelines as well. We'll keep getting you more details and updates on that on the other side of a very quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5, and let's now get you details of the significant development that came to the fore on the sidelines of the G20 summit, and that is India's bid to bring together continents, a first of its kind economic corridor that is going to be linking India, Europe and the Gulf. We are going to be seeing a mega initiative as far as rail and port connectivity is concerned. Why is this important? Because this is a direct counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Let's take a look at how exactly it benefits India and the world, and what went behind the scenes as far as getting in this initiative was concerned. Now, we're given to understand that India has zero investment commitment as far as this project is concerned. There's a major boost that is going to be focusing on electricity, on infrastructure, of course. It is going to be a way to connect the world without any risk. Remember, a lot of China's BRI and in fact the OPEC as well is about trapping these countries into debt. It is a debt trap diplomacy that China follows, but India is making very, very clear that this is going to be invested by some private organizations, including the IMF as well. It shows connectivity is a priority for India, not just within India, but connectivity across continents is something that India is focusing on. The negotiation task was assigned to NSA Ajit Doval, is what we were given to understand, before the agreement was reached on the sidelines of the G20 summit. There was no compromise absolutely on Indian security with this particular deal. That is something that India has made very, very clear. There is going to be no compromise as far as India's sovereignty and its security is concerned. But India did take the lead in bringing all these major players on board as far as this project is concerned. This is something that definitely has to leave China rattled, because it is a direct challenge to the BRI. Listen in to what union ministers have to say about this big development.
Could you first tell us or give us a sense of how this land corridor, which traverses a mass of land from India through Arabia and all the way to Europa, as some people are saying, how did this idea first of all come about?
Our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has a very clear vision that India, Middle East and Europe, they have a common thinking, they have a good alignment, and the time has come when we should look at an economic corridor which is a combination of shipping and rail, so that from the west coast ports of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala, we can send the goods to the ports of Middle East. From there, the goods can be then transported via railway corridor all the way to Europe. So this will reduce the distance between India and Europe by thousands of kilometers. This will create a totally new corridor around which many industries will get developed. India will get many new export opportunities. We will also get an opportunity to export our technology to these countries. For example, in case of telecom, today we are exporting telecom equipment to more than 40 countries, and in one of the bilaterals, India's telecom equipment has been now accepted as a part of the Rip and Replace program in US. Similarly, in this corridor, in the economic corridor between Middle East and Europe, India will be able to find many opportunities to design the projects, to execute the projects and to export railway locomotives, railway coaches, railway wheels. All these items can then be exported to the Middle East and Europe via this corridor.
So, sir, initially this is envisaged as a land corridor or a railway project, but could this also be extended to, let's say, a gas pipeline? Could this be extended to optical fibers? India, of course, is at the forefront 5G technology. So could this be extended to optical fibers as well, or is it currently envisaged merely as a rail and land connectivity project?
Communication is an integral part of this corridor. There will be a major optical fiber corridor all along this transportation corridor, and gas pipeline can also become part of it, because once you have the right of way, then it becomes reasonably easy to lay out other utilities along that right of way.
I also do want to ask you about, the funding for such massive infrastructure projects. There's always been a question mark, because clearly such mass scale of funding needs to come from the public exchequer of various countries that are involved in this project. So is there some more details you can share on how the funding for this infrastructure project will come from?
Many multilateral institutions and funds are willing to participate in this program because it has good economic viability. If you look at the distance which is saved in transporting goods from Europe to India, that is in thousands of kilometers. That itself produces viability. That itself makes the project viable. Apart from that, the many sections of the project are sections are already, countries have started investing in many of these sections already. So that makes the project significantly easier to execute. And then once the corridor becomes one seamless corridor, the revenues which it will generate, those revenues are going to be significant. So that's why it will be a good bankable project in my opinion.
Amitabh Kantji, namaste, dhanyavad and congratulations. Is it now sinking in that you've achieved what was seemingly looking like impossible even on the night before the day of the summit?
Well, it was difficult. It was very, very tricky. But I think as a team, we've managed it, and it's been largely possible because of India's great stature today, and because of the Prime Minister's own, his credibility in a democracy being very high. And I think I work as the Sherpa to the Prime Minister. So because his stature was high, I could take many risks. I could bulldoze a little bit, and I could get everybody together. The emerging markets got together, and we had good negotiators. And I think we really pushed hard, because Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa and India, all of us, when we get together, we bring a lot of power. And then I realized that as we went along, Saudi, Turkey, Argentina, Mexico all joined us to say that we will not allow G20 to be wrecked. It will not be a divided house. It will be a voice of consensus. And that brought everybody together. We had many challenges while we were negotiating. And in the final stages, I think it went up about minimum 15 times, up and down, up and down, up and down. But I think we were just fortunate to have clinched it. So I think it was, to my mind, I give a lot of credit to this because of the elevated stature of India, and also because I was working as really the Sherpa of the Prime Minister. His personal credibility was very high, and I could pull it off. True. Actually, we got into the final round of negotiation at about 11:30. Next day morning was the leaders' conference, and there was just no time, but we took it to brinkmanship. But important thing is that it's not about IAS or foreign service. We are all working for the country, and we are all working essentially to ensure that India wins. And I had a team of very good officers. I had sitting right and left to me the Brazilian Sherpa, who's a renowned diplomat, and I had Zen, who's a South African Sherpa.
There seems to be significant progress compared to Bali, Amitabhji. And in one interesting part is the economic corridor. Italy now has hinted to China that they're trying to pull out of Belt and Road, and because they're part of this economic corridor. That's a big strategic win, sir.
Yeah. So, Anand, this is what India has done is a win for multilateralism. It's a win for developing countries. It's a win for emerging markets. It's a win for the global south. And it's a win for consensus politics. And it's a win for peace. It's a clarion call for peace in the world today. And what the document really states very clearly is that growth and development have to be paramount for emerging markets. And this is really the key to this document.
Shifting focus now to some breaking news that's coming in, and there seems to be a curious case of ministers in the Chinese government going missing. Now, after we saw the absence of the foreign minister, now we're given to understand the whereabouts of the defense minister are also under question. The defense minister of China, Li Qiang, seems to be missing in action is what we're now learning. The US ambassador to Japan, in fact, has put out a tweet which we will be sharing with you in just a short while from now. The US ambassador to Japan, in fact, brought this to notice, speaking about the political instability in China, going on to say that the defense minister, Li Qiang, has not been seen in public for the last 2 weeks. There is no word really coming in from the Chinese side just as yet. Abhishek, my colleague, joining us, getting us more details. Abhishek, what more can you share with us? Are there any details that are trickling in apart from what the US ambassador has claimed?
No, for now we know that Chinese defense minister's public appearance has been very limited in the recent times, but exactly if he's been removed or he's been replaced is yet not clear. We have recent development in Chinese political system where we saw Qiang, the former foreign minister, who was sidelined in a very subtle way. Like for weeks he was not seen in a public space, and then in one fine morning it was told that Wang Yi, the last foreign minister, will be furnishing the duties of Qiang and he will be the foreign minister. So that was how Qiang was actually removed from his office, and so far there has been no explanation why or on whether any corruption charges was against him or on what ground he was removed. Same has been the case with the commander of the rocket forces of China, the one who also went missing, and there has been no information regarding this. Now Chinese Defense Minister Li Qiang is also missing from public layer, and for the last 2 weeks there has not been any event where he has appeared, and now the rumors are rife that maybe he is also one of the victims of the Chinese hidden political system where things are decided in a way which nobody understands, at least publicly, and a lot of the political decisions are taken behind the curtain. And this also seems to be one of the reasons. And we know that Chinese President Xi Jinping did not travel to India to take part in G20 summit level talks, and it was said one of the many theories that why didn't he attend the G20 summit was that he was having too many political issues to handle with at home, and probably that was one of the reasons that stopped him from traveling for 2-3 days to a destination where his domestic affairs were more important than the G20 summit, and he sent Li Qiang, the Prime Minister, to India, and he did not come himself. So probably that theory could be true, that the political system or the political compulsions in China were far more urgent for the Chinese president to travel to India, and the disappearance, or for that matter not appearance, of Chinese Defense Minister Li Qiang for 2 weeks does tell a different story, that probably all is not well with the cabinet of Xi Jinping in China.
Right, Abhishek, do stay on with us, because I just want to get in what the US ambassador to Japan has now come out and tweeted, and this is the tweet that we are putting out for our viewers. He goes on to say, President Xi's cabinet lineup is now resembling an Agatha Christie novel. Then there were none. That is a novel that he is going on to quote. He says, first the foreign minister goes missing, then the rocket force commanders go missing, and now the defense minister hasn't been seen in public for the last 2 weeks. Who's going to win this unemployment race is the question the US ambassador is asking there. China's youth or Xi's cabinet? The mystery there continues, and Abhishek, until the Chinese administration or the Chinese foreign ministry perhaps comes out and gives out some sort of clarification, rumors like this are only going to escalate further. Abhishek? We'll try and reconnect with my colleague Abhishek there, but for now, this is the latest that we can share with you as far as the curious case of several within the Xi Jinping administration going missing is concerned. We'll keep a track of that and much more here on CNN News 18. For now, a quick break.
CM
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5 with me, Poonam Burde. On the sidelines of a successful G20, there were several bilaterals that were held by the Indian Prime Minister. One such was held today as well with Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince, remember, is on a state visit to India. We did see a ceremonial welcome for the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman this morning at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. There were bilateral delegation level talks held between the two sides as well. At least 8 agreements have been signed while the talks happened between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Saudi Crown Prince. Cooperation in the defense sector, trade, investment, space is something that the two leaders discussed. Listen in.
जरूरतों के अनुसार हम हमारे संबंधों में नए और आधुनिक आयाम जोड़ रहे हैं। भारत के लिए सऊदी अरब हमारे सबसे महत्वपूर्ण स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर में से एक है। विश्व की 2 बड़ी और तेज गति से बढ़ने वाली अर्थव्यवस्थाओं के रूप में हमारा आपसी सहयोग पूरे क्षेत्र की शांति और स्थिरता के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। हिज रॉयल हाइनेस के साथ बैठक के हमने हमारी करीबी साझेदारी को नेक्स्ट लेवल पर ले जाने के लिए कई इनिशिएटिव की पहचान की है। आज की हमारी बैठक से हमारे संबंधों को एक नई ऊर्जा, एक नई दिशा मिलेगी और हमें मिलकर मानवता की भलाई के लिए काम करते रहने की प्रेरणा मिलेगी। कल हमने मिलकर भारत, पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप के बीच इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर स्थापित करने के लिए ऐतिहासिक शुरुआत की है। इसी कॉरिडोर से केवल दोनों देशों ही आपस में नहीं जोड़ेगा, परंतु एशिया, पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप के बीच आर्थिक सहयोग, ऊर्जा के विकास, और डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी को बल देगा। योर रॉयल हाइनेस, आपके नेतृत्व में और आपके विजन 2030 के माध्यम से सऊदी अरब जिस तेजी से आर्थिक और सामाजिक प्रगति कर रहा है, उसके लिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। सऊदी अरब में रहने वाली भारतीयों के हितों की सुरक्षा और उनके कल्याण के लिए आपकी प्रतिबद्धता के लिए हम आपके बहुत बहुत आभारी हैं। भारत और सऊदी अरब की मित्रता क्षेत्रीय और वैश्विक स्थिरता, समृद्धि और मानव कल्याण के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। मैं एक बार फिर हिज रॉयल हाइनेस और आप सभी का G20 समिट की सफलता में योगदान देने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं।
Relations between Arabs and India's, between Saudi Arabia also and India, beneficial relations for both countries. There was no disagreement at all during the history of this relationship, but there is cooperation to build the future of our country and create opportunities. Today we're working on the future opportunities. There is a huge agenda to be working with. We are working through this council to achieve these accomplishments, and these are promising.
Some more breaking news now coming in, and it's an embarrassing situation for the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to be in, because 24 hours after his scheduled departure from India back to Canada, he still remains here because there's a technical snag in the plane that he arrived in. We're now given to understand that a second plane has been dispatched for him. Abhishek, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details. Abhishek, what exactly happened and what's the status as far as Justin Trudeau's departure is concerned?
Well, the plane of Justice Trudeau was supposed to depart by 8 o'clock yesterday night, but then the technical snag actually forced him to stay back. He spent another night in Delhi, and now still we don't have any confirmation yet whether the technical snag that was developed in this 30-year-old plane, whether it has been resolved. Because, you know, this is not the first time that Trudeau's plane has experienced technical snag. Canadian government's CC-150 Polaris plane, in which Justin Trudeau is traveling, is also transported to the government officials and foreign dignitaries, and these are some of the oldest in its tribe, and probably now the first time that plane has developed this technical snag. Earlier in the past also there was one time when Justin Trudeau had to reschedule his overall foreign trip because of this technical glitch. This time also it has happened. It is a bit embarrassing for the Canadian government to have a plane when all the leaders have left. Justin Trudeau is still held up in Delhi because the plane could not fly. We are not yet confirmed whether some backup arrangements have been made. Some other planes are being arranged.
Sure. So we still don't have details of when exactly he could be departing from India. An embarrassing situation to be in nonetheless. Abhishek, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. With that, it's a wrap from my side on Nation at 5. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Anusha Soni. The successful completion of G20 summit in the national capital was marked by a joint declaration by all member states. While that was clearly a successful summit that was held here, the G20 declaration of New Delhi was an important one. Amidst all the hectic diplomatic developments, many questioned the sidelining of Canada at the G20 summit. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met on the sidelines of the G20 summit. This comes after Trudeau skipped the President's G20 reception for leaders and gave two big announcements, a miss.